The Galactic Council Chamber was a monument to power. Built on the ancient world of Vornis Prime, it housed representatives of the most dominant species in the known galaxy. Towering figures of the Thel-Zur, their crystalline forms shimmering under the Council's artificial suns, sat in quiet arrogance. The reptilian Drachnae, their emerald scales polished to perfection, watched with slitted eyes, amused. And at the head of the chamber sat the Exel-Terry Emperor, draped in flowing crimson robes, exuding an air of absolute authority. The topic of today's assembly: Earth, a minor species, barely a few thousand years into space travel. Primitive, chaotic, reckless, yet for reasons unknown, they refused to bend. The Exel-Terry Emperor stood, his golden eyes scanning the chamber as he spoke. "We have tolerated humanity long enough. They expand like a plague, defying our laws, rejecting our rule. They are arrogant, unrefined, and dangerous. We offer them integration, yet they spit on our generosity." He turned to the assembled leaders, his voice like a blade. "This cannot stand. They must be taught their place." A murmur of agreement rippled through the hall. The Exel-Terry were not just another species. They were an empire forged in war, built upon conquest. Their fleet had shattered civilizations before, grinding rebellious species into submission. A lanky, amphibious being from the Sereth Union chuckled, his voice bubbling. "Surely, you overestimate them, Emperor. They are nothing but loud, stubborn mammals. Their weapons are outdated, their fleets are small. Why waste time discussing a non-threat?" Laughter followed. The notion that humanity could resist the might of the Exel-Terry, let alone the entire Galactic Council, was absurd. The Exel-Terry Emperor smirked. "Then let us settle this now. We will issue one final warning. Earth will have two choices: submit or be removed from existence." The laughter grew louder. Council members clinked their ceremonial glasses, amused by the inevitability of humanity's downfall. But not everyone was entertained. A solitary figure sat at the farthest end of the chamber, silent and watchful. Grand Minister Orvash of the Yorland Dominion, an elder species that had watched over the galaxy for millennia. Unlike the others, he did not laugh. His species had seen this before. Young races, underestimated and cornered, had a way of becoming something else. Something dangerous. He leaned forward, his ancient voice barely above a whisper. "Be careful, Emperor. You speak of removing them. But do you know what happens when you back a predator into a corner?" The laughter died down slightly, but the Exel-Terry Emperor only scoffed. "A predator? Humanity is no predator. They are an annoyance. And soon, they will be nothing." With that, the decision was made. The ultimatum would be sent. The war would begin. And in the coming days, the galaxy would learn a truth that had been long forgotten. Humanity does not bow. Humanity does not break. And when challenged, humanity does not lose. The Exel-Terry warship Eternal Dominion emerged from hyperspace, a jagged behemoth of obsidian and crimson steel, casting an ominous shadow over Earth's orbital station. It was flanked by an escort fleet, 6 destroyers, each larger than any human vessel. Their arrival was not an act of diplomacy. It was a statement. The Exel-Terry did not negotiate. They dictated. Inside the orbital station, General Elias Carter watched the massive fleet on the holo display, his face unreadable. The Exel-Terry weren't even pretending to be subtle. This was a show of force, meant to intimidate humanity into submission before a single shot was fired. Too bad for them. Humans didn't scare easy. A chime echoed through the command center. The Exel-Terry were demanding an audience. Carter sighed, rolling his shoulders before nodding to the comms officer. "Let's hear what they have to say." The screen flickered to life, revealing a towering Exel-Terry figure adorned in ceremonial armor, his golden eyes filled with disdain. This was High Chancellor Vornak, the Exel-Terry Empire's voice of authority. He did not offer greetings. He did not smile. He spoke with the weight of an empire behind him. You are an anomaly, humans, a species that should have remained insignificant. Yet you persist, violating borders, refusing to acknowledge our rule. This arrogance ends now. ***. Behind Carter, a few officers stiffened, fists clenching. But the general simply leaned back in his chair, unimpressed. Vornak continued, his voice thick with superiority. Earth will surrender its fleets. Your colonies will be placed under our control. Your military will be dismantled, and your leaders will submit to the authority of the Galactic Council. A slow smile crept across Carter's face. And if we refuse? The High Chancellor's mandibles flared, irritated at the defiance. He lifted a clawed hand, motioning to something off-screen. A moment later, a second image appeared beside him. Live footage from Mars. Human officers sucked in their breath. One of Mars' orbital stations, Argus 3, was under siege. Exhale. Terry warships surrounded it, weapons primed. Fighters swarmed like locusts, blocking every escape route. Vornak's voice turned cold. If you refuse, this is what happens. Mars will burn. Then your other colonies. Then Earth itself. Silence hung in the air. The XL Terry had made their move. The demand was clear. Surrender, or be wiped out. For a long moment, Carter said nothing. He simply studied the High Chancellor's face. The XL Terry had faced thousands of species before. They expected terror. They expected pleading. They expected the human to bow. But instead, Carter smiled. Not a nervous, fearful smile. Not the smile of a man who had just realized his people were doomed. No, this was something else. It was the smile of a predator. Carter leaned forward, resting his elbows on the console. You first. The transmission cut off. The room was dead silent. The officers turned to Carter, barely able to contain their shock. One of them, a young lieutenant, swallowed hard. Sir, what did you just do? Carter stood, straightening his uniform. His voice was calm. I just declared war. Alarms blared as defense systems powered up. Across the solar system, human fleets prepared for battle. The XL Terry had come to Earth expecting surrender. What they didn't realize was that they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. The war began before the Galactic Council could even react. The XL Terry, confident in their overwhelming superiority, launched their first strike against humanity's outermost colony. Erebus 9. A lush world rich in resources, it was a prime target. The XL Terry expected the invasion to last mere hours. They were wrong. The invasion fleet, consisting of 2 battle cruisers, a dozen escort frigates, and thousands of ground troops, entered Erebus 9's orbit without resistance. XL Terry Command assumed the humans had abandoned the colony, choosing to flee rather than fight. Then, the first explosion tore through the fleet. One of the lead frigates, the Emperor's Wrath, detonated in a blinding fireball. Before the XL Terry could react, another ship erupted into flames. Then another. Panic spread. We're taking fire. Where is it coming from? A XL Terry captain roared. The answer came too late. Human stealth ships. Using experimental cloaking technology, small human strike teams had slipped past the XL Terry's sensors, planting magnetic mines on their hulls before they even reached the colony. The moment the XL Terry got comfortable, the mines were remotely detonated. What was supposed to be a simple invasion turned into chaos. Admiral Valcor, commanding the XL Terry fleet, snarled in frustration. Destroy those ships. Bomb the surface. The remaining XL Terry warships opened fire, unleashing plasma barrages upon the colony's capital city. But instead of helpless civilians running in terror, they fired back. Massive anti-air turrets, hidden beneath false terrain, erupted from the ground. Human railgun platforms tore through XL Terry fighters. Portable missile silos launched hypersonic projectiles, turning enemy landing craft into burning wrecks. This wasn't a helpless colony. It was a trap. The XL Terry had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. The battle turns. On the ground, XL Terry forces landed, expecting an easy sweep. Their soldiers, massive reptilian warriors, marched in formation, energy weapons primed. They were used to species surrendering once their cities were attacked. Humans did not surrender. Instead, they fought like devils. Guerrilla warfare, ambush tactics, booby-trapped buildings. Every street, every alley was a killing zone. Human snipers picked off XL Terry officers, their rail rifles punching through armor like paper. Infantry squads fought tooth and nail, using advanced exosuits that made them faster, stronger, deadlier. A squad of XL Terry rushed into a seemingly abandoned building, only for the walls to explode inward, burying them alive. Everywhere they turned, the humans were there. Unrelenting, merciless, adaptive. An intercepted XL Terry transmission, sent in desperation, made its way back to their high command. They fight like nothing we have faced before. They are not prey. They are hunters. For the first time in XL Terry history, they knew fear. The moment that Galaxy took notice. Word of the battle reached the Galactic Council within hours. Live feeds from XL Terry warships, captured by human cyber warfare teams, were broadcasted across the galaxy. The most powerful empires watched in disbelief as the primitive humans tore apart one of the most feared militaries. Council members, once mocking humanity, now whispered among themselves. They should have surrendered. No, the XL Terry should never have challenged them. As the XL Terry fleet crumbled, a single transmission was sent from Earth to the Council. It was from General Elias Carter. "We didn't start this war, but we will finish it." And the galaxy held its breath. The XL Terry had never suffered a defeat like this. Erebus 9 was supposed to be an easy conquest. Instead, their forces were decimated, their fleet left in ruins, and their once unshakable confidence now fractured. But the war was far from over. Rage burned through the XL Terry High Command. The loss of a fleet, the humiliation at the hands of a primitive species, this was unacceptable. A full-scale retaliation was ordered. No more underestimating the humans. A new invasion force, 10 times the size of the first, was dispatched, targeting multiple human-controlled worlds. The XL Terry were determined to overwhelm Earth's forces with sheer numbers. They would not make the same mistake again. Or so they thought. Humanity's unorthodox warfare. The XL Terry believed war was about power, about crushing resistance with superior firepower and numbers. Humanity saw war differently. It wasn't about strength alone. It was about adaptation, unpredictability, and precision. As the XL Terry Armada launched its assault, they expected direct engagements, large-scale battles, open warfare. Instead, humanity fought like ghosts. XL Terry supply routes vanished. Cargo freighters carrying weapons and reinforcements were hijacked mid-flight, their escorts hacked and turned against them. Human cyber warfare teams infiltrated XL Terry systems. Entire fleets received false orders, sending them on wild chases into empty space. Saboteurs struck key installations. A massive XL Terry shipyard mysteriously exploded from within, destroying half a fleet before it ever launched. For every world the XL Terry attacked, they lost 3 times the resources they gained. And when they finally did engage human forces in open battle, they suffered like never before. The Battle of Ardent Reach. Ardent Reach was the XL Terry's next primary target. A heavily industrialized human world, it was deemed critical to Earth's war effort. If the XL Terry conquered it, humanity's ability to wage war would be crippled. So they threw everything they had at it. 2 dreadnoughts, 30 battleships, hundreds of strike craft. They expected an overwhelming victory. Instead, they walked into a massacre. Human fleet formations weren't rigid and predictable like the XL Terry's. They were fluid, chaotic, yet precise. Instead of standing their ground, they lured excelterry forces into carefully laid traps. Gravity mines disabled entire squadrons. Coordinated EMP strikes turned excelterry warships into floating coffins. Human bombers, moving in impossible formations, surgically dismantled capital ships. But the real terror came from the ground. The excelterry landed troops on Ardent Reach, believing they could seize the planet in mere hours. Then they met the human defenders. It was no conventional army. It was something far deadlier. Human exosuit soldiers moved with terrifying speed, lifting excelterry warriors with one arm and snapping their spines. Tactical drones swarmed through the cities, marking targets for railgun snipers who never missed. Urban streets became killing fields, with explosives hidden in every corner, forcing the excelterry to fight for every inch of ground. And then, the blackout teams arrived. These were human infiltration units, moving unseen through enemy ranks, knives, and silenced weapons, turning entire battalions into corpses overnight. For the first time in history, an invading force begged for retreat. The message that broke the excelterry. A final desperate distress call was sent to the excelterry homeworld. They fight like no other. They are relentless. We cannot stop them. The excelterry emperor listened in stunned silence. For the first time in his reign, he felt fear. And somewhere, watching the battle unfold, a Galactic Council member whispered the words the entire galaxy now feared to say out loud. We have awakened something we do not understand. The excelterry Empire had waged war for millennia. They had crushed civilizations, reduced entire planets to ash, and absorbed countless species into their rule. But never, not once, had they suffered like this. Their fleets were being dismantled piece by piece. Their soldiers, once feared across the stars, were now hunted like animals. The name human was no longer spoken with mockery. It was uttered with dread. And then, the impossible happened. For the first time in recorded history, the excelterry High Command called for a full retreat. The fall of the excelterry Armada. The battle over Ardent Reach had left the excelterry fleet crippled. Their surviving ships flowed into deep space, desperately trying to regroup. They expected humanity to hold position and defend their territories. Instead, humanity chased them down. Strike teams infiltrated excelterry communications, intercepting their retreat paths. The moment the excelterry ships emerged from hyperspace to regroup, human fleets were already waiting. The first ambush, near the ruined moon of Karsus, an entire excelterry battle group was obliterated within minutes. The second ambush, in the shadow of a dying star, human stealth bombers disabled excelterry engines, leaving them stranded as railgun fire shredded their hulls. The final blow. Near the excelterry colony of Dravus IV, human commandos hijacked a excelterry dreadnought, using its own weapons to annihilate its fleet. What was left of the excelterry was not an armada. It was a scattered, broken force, running for its life. The Council's shock, and their fear. The Galactic Council chamber was silent. For centuries, the Council had feared the excelterry. They had tolerated their aggression because resistance was impossible. But now, the unthinkable had occurred. The excelterry had lost. A trembling counselor from the Thal-Zir Alliance spoke first. This is madness. Humanity should not be capable of this. A Drachnae general, his emerald scales dull with shock, hissed in agreement. They are unpredictable, dangerous. If they can defeat the excelterry, what else are they capable of? Whispers of fear spread through the council. The species that had once mocked humanity now saw them for what they truly were, a force unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. The Yorland Grand Minister, Orvash, finally spoke. His voice was calm, but his words were grave. The war is not over, and if the excelterry fall, something far worse will take their place. Humanity's next move. On Earth, General Elias Carter watched the Excelterries retreat with cold satisfaction. The war was turning, but he knew one thing. Humanity could not stop now. The Excelterry would regroup. They would return stronger, angrier. And when they did, humanity had to be ready. Carter turned to his officers. His voice was steady. We push forward. Because now, humanity wasn't just fighting to survive. They were fighting to win. The Excelterry Empire was in freefall. Across the stars, their once unbreakable dominion fractured. Their war fleets, once the terror of the galaxy, were shattered and retreating. Their outer colonies abandoned. Their soldiers demoralized. And humanity. Humanity did not stop. General Elias Carter knew the Excelterry still had strength. Their core worlds remained untouched, their inner defenses formidable. If humanity gave them time, they would rebuild, and the war would drag on for decades. That was not an option. Humanity had momentum, and Carter intended to use it. The plan was simple: strike before the Excelterry could recover. And so, the hunt began. The Siege of Kellorax, humanity's first offensive. Kellorax was a fortress world, a critical Excelterry stronghold. Thick planetary shields, massive orbital defenses, and a garrison of 500,000 Excelterry warriors. The Council believed no species could take it. They had never met humans. Phase 1. The battle began before a single shot was fired. Human cyber warfare teams infiltrated Kellorax's defense grid, blinding sensors, falsifying fleet movements, and causing mass confusion. Excelterry officers received orders to stand down, issued from their own command network. Phase 2. A fleet of human warships arrived, but did not attack. Instead, they broadcasted a single message: surrender now. You will not get a second chance. The Excelterry laughed, until their orbital stations exploded. Human saboteurs had already infiltrated them, planting charges that left the fortress world suddenly vulnerable. Phase 3. The ground assault was unlike anything the Excelterry had seen. Human drop pods fell like meteors, landing deep behind enemy lines. Armored walkers, controlled remotely, wreaked havoc, smashing through fortified bunkers. And then came the shock troops. Elite human soldiers, clad in adaptive exosuits, moved faster than Excelterry eyes could track. They outmaneuvered, outgunned, and outthought their reptilian foes at every turn. For every human soldier that fell, 10 Excelterry died. Within 36 hours, Kellorax, a world that had stood unconquered for centuries, had fallen. The Excelterry defenders did not surrender. They were hunted. The broadcast that changed everything. As the smoke cleared over Kellorax, the Galactic Council received a transmission. It was a live feed from the battlefield. Excelterry corpses lined the streets. Human forces stood victorious. Then, General Carter stepped forward. He stared into the camera, his voice calm. The Excelterry started this war. We are finishing it. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer defending itself. Humanity was coming for them. And the galaxy trembled. Kellorax had fallen. For the first time in their history, the Excelterry were on the defensive. Their empire, once a symbol of unstoppable conquest, was now scrambling for survival. Panic spread across their core worlds. Refugee ships clogged hyperspace lanes. High-ranking officers whispered of surrender, while warlords plotted betrayals to save themselves. But one truth loomed over them all. Humanity was coming. And they were not stopping. The breaking of the Excelterry war machine. The fall of Kellorax had exposed a critical flaw in the Excelterry strategy. They had always been the hunters. They had never been the hunted. Humanity exploited this weakness without mercy. Phase 1. Psychological warfare. Human intelligence teams spread false rumors of betrayals, mutinies, and secret peace talks. Entire Excelterry fleets turned on each other, believing they had been abandoned by their leaders. Phase 2. Economic destruction. Excelteri supply lines were choked off. Human special forces raided depots, hijacked freighters, and crippled industrial hubs. Without fuel, weapons, or reinforcements, Excelteri fleets were trapped in deep space, helpless. Phase 3. The relentless advance. Humanity did not fight for territory. They fought for total dominance. Instead of conquering every world, they surgically dismantled Excelteri infrastructure. Starbases were bombed into rubble. Weapons factories were hacked and turned against their own troops. The elite human strike teams infiltrated command bunkers, assassinating key leaders in their sleep. Everywhere the Excelteri turned, they saw their empire collapsing. And then, Earth's forces launched their boldest attack yet, the raid on the Excelteri homeworld's moons. The Excelteri homeworld, Zarquan, had 3 heavily fortified moons, each one filled with shipyards, planetary defenses, and orbital cannons. Taking Zarquan itself was impossible, but crippling its defenses, that was achievable. Humanity's plan was daring, insane, impossible, which meant it was perfect. Instead of launching a full-scale invasion, human forces used stealth carriers to slip past enemy fleets. Elite infiltration teams, equipped with advanced cloaking tech, landed undetected on each moon. And in one synchronized moment, they detonated nuclear charges inside the shipyards. The night sky above Zarquan turned to fire. Billions of Excelteri watched in horror as their own shipyards collapsed, crushing entire fleets before they could launch. The impossible had happened. Humanity had reached the doorstep of the Excelteri throne world. The Council's desperation. The Galactic Council had expected humanity to fall. Now, they were watching an empire burn. Desperate, the Council sent a final message to Earth. This war must end. Humanity has proven its strength. We beg you to negotiate before the Excelteri are exterminated. Earth's response. A single transmission broadcasted to the entire galaxy. They wanted war. Now they will have the consequences. And with that, humanity made its next move. They set their sights on Zarquan itself. The final battle was near, and the galaxy could do nothing but watch. The Excelteri homeworld, Zarquan, had stood for thousands of years, a fortress planet, the heart of an empire, a world believed to be untouchable. Now it was humanity's final target. The Galactic Council watched in stunned silence as Earth's fleets surrounded the planet. The war that had begun as a desperate struggle for survival had become something far greater. Humanity had not just survived. They had become the dominant power in the galaxy. And now, they would decide the fate of an empire. The Excelteri's last stand. The Excelteri were beaten, but they were not broken. On the surface of Zarquan, millions of soldiers prepared for their final battle. They knew they could not win, but they would die before surrendering. High above, the last remnants of the Excelteri fleet formed a desperate defensive line. Over 200 warships, battered but defiant, stood between Earth and victory. And then, humanity struck. EMP warheads detonated in orbit, frying Excelteri targeting systems. Kinetic rods rained down from space, turning fortresses into craters. Human cyber warfare teams hijacked defense grids, turning planetary weapons against their own troops. The Excelteri fought with everything they had. It was not enough. The Emperor's final choice. Deep beneath Zarquan's surface, Emperor Kashhol watched his empire collapse. He had ruled with iron will for centuries. He had commanded the destruction of 100 worlds. He had believed humanity would be nothing more than a footnote in history. And now he had only one choice left. His generals urged him to fight to the last soldier, to make humanity pay in blood. But Kashhol saw the truth. Humanity was not like any enemy before. They were not conquerors. They were not slavers. They were something far worse. They were executioners. If the war continued, there would be no Excelteri left. And so, for the first time in their history, the XL did something unthinkable. They surrendered. The war ends, and a new era begins. A single transmission was sent across the stars. We yield. The war was over. The galaxy had expected humanity to demand vengeance, to wipe out the XL as a warning to all. Instead, humanity did something far more terrifying. They did not destroy the XL. They rewrote the balance of the galaxy itself. The XL Empire was dismantled, its worlds placed under human oversight. The Galactic Council was restructured, with Earth at its head. And a new law was established, written in fire across the stars. Never again will humanity be threatened. For the first time in history, the galaxy was not ruled by fear of the XL. Now, they feared Earth. And as General Carter stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching Zarquan's skies clear, he spoke the words that the galaxy would never forget. They wanted war. We gave them an ending. Epilogue. A new order. The war had ended, but something far greater had begun. Humanity was no longer just another species. They were the new power in the galaxy. And the stars would never be the same again.